Hello once again. Today we are evaluating a chess game between my son and I. He's only 8. I'm much older. In which we played the main line of the Caro-Kann, according to Modern Chess Openings. It's found on page 174. We went down the first column, first 17 moves. He played white, I played black. Now, we used the book at his request because he wanted to learn the Caro-Kann. So, it starts with e4 and c6. Now, those two moves are normal. This deviates from almost every version of the Caro-Kann that I've ever played. Almost everyone I've ever played either advances this pawn or captures that pawn. Now, I'm not sure which is better because I haven't been playing it enough, but it's become one of my go-to defenses as black. And this is the main line, which, again, I've seen almost no one do, but my son wanted to follow the book, so there it is. In the main line, black captures the e-pawn. White recaptures with the knight. The bishop comes out. The knight goes back. The bishop retreats. And the h-pawn comes up for both players to give the bishop one threatens the bishop eventually, and one creates a hidey hole for the bishop here, which we will see eventually as it gets used. And so on. All of these moves, as you see, are directly from the book, and that's when the bishop goes into the aforementioned hidey hole. And here, rather than allow white to capture the hiding bishop and perhaps recapture with the rook and then leave my rook exposed, the main line shows black taking the initiative and white recapturing with the queen. Black moves the queen here. I am not sure why. Some expert can tell me in the comments. If you know more than I do, always feel free to leave a comment with a brief and clear explanation. If you've been watching the evaluation bar or the number, see this number right here in the center, just to the right of center of your screen. This is Stockfish's evaluation of the position. It shows white slowly increasing in superiority, very slowly, in a very small advantage. Or if you're watching the evaluation bar beside the board, you see the white, lighter color version of it expanding slowly as this opening progresses. We're still on the main line, still copying moves from the book. One move 13. Both sides, as you see, castle queenside, or long castling, as it is sometimes referred to. Move 14. Here, black captures the knight. White recaptures. If you're watching the eval bar, you see white is up 0.06. Queen retreats. And there is where the first column of the main line ends in the Modern Chess Openings book. And here we took over and played by hand. We didn't have the evaluation bar because we were playing over the board. I later imported this to Lichess. So we did not know that white had a 0.7 advantage right here. But he did. My son chose to capture the pawn, which I said at the time was a mistake because it is a center pawn capturing a flank pawn, thus leaving white with no central pawns and black with one central pawn. But the computer doesn't say it's a mistake or even an inaccuracy, although white does lose a slight bit of percentage in advantage and doesn't gain it back when black recaptures. Now, one thing to learn about my son is he loves what he calls even trades or piece-for-piece trades. And so every time he sees one, he will take it. And here he wanted a queen trade, but the book says him moving his queen there puts his rating down, as you can see. And black now has the advantage for the very first time in this game.
Check.
Now, it's almost dead even. 0.1 is almost dead even. So that queen trade, and that's actually that series of trades, the bishop, the rook, and the queen, helped black more than it did white. The only thing I can think of for that is that perhaps because black's king is exposed, whereas white's king is closer to shelter, moving to one of these two spaces. But I am not certain why the advantage changed. Again, if you know more than me, and probably most of you do, feel free to explain in the comments.
Check.
This was not necessarily for me to check. I just wanted to activate the rook, get it out of the corner. Here, black gains advantage on the evaluation bar because the king didn't go there. I'm not sure why that's important. For some reason, the king moving here is a problem. Maybe because I can check again with the knight. Regardless, I took the free pawn. That, I'm surprised the computer didn't rate that as a mistake. Because it doesn't really attack anything. This pawn is guarded. Can't really attack the knight. He should have gone here if he wanted to threaten the knight. But computer thinks that's fine. And one thing to notice is that unlike my previous games, I'm evaluating this with Lichess, which is very happy to declare moves blunders compared to chess.com. Chess.com will say a move is a blunder if it's a blunder. Lichess likes to say blunder even if there's no real explanation for it, at least in my experience. For example, this is a blunder. I'm not sure why. It's an even trade. But now black is up 4.8. Even though our pieces are almost identical, our material, black outweighs white by 1 pawn. The queen side majority here relative to these. White has a slight king side majority, but 1 pawn seems a lot to give that negative 4.8 rating. That's a blunder, according to Lichess. Obviously, my plan was to follow it up with this to threaten the c-pawn. That's a blunder, according to Lichess. I know what my son was doing. He's planning to come here because he loves, as I said, even trades. That's a blunder, according to Lichess. My reasoning was, I am going to move this rook out of the way, but I first wanted my king to have shelter. There he goes, ready for his even trade. I did not take it, which the computer says is a blunder and now says we're even. I should have taken it. Probably because once I did and his king retakes, then I have, as mentioned, this superior pawn majority on the queen side, and then I would, 1 square at a time, march my king over there to help them come down. That's my guess. Regardless, he went there, which again, Lichess declares as a blunder. And that's a blunder. And that's a blunder. Oh, yay, not a blunder. My idea here is that I have a passed pawn, which can see pay dirt, or a touchdown, as whatever the phrase may be, and I have been told to put my rook behind it, which is why I did it in the first place, way back there, when Lichess said I should take his rook. But there we are. So back to where we were. I want to advance my e-pawn. It has nothing to stop it except possibly the king, and his king really doesn't want to get stuck blocking my pawn. But he moves that direction anyway. I come after his rook. He retreats once more. Here, the computer says he should have come here, which obviously would be a protected check, but he knew or guessed correctly that my next move would have been to take his pawn, and then his rook would have just been kind of stuck there in the middle with nowhere to go and nothing to do. So I'm not sure what the computer had in mind. That's a blunder. Told you, Lichess is very happy to declare things blunders. But I'm up another pawn now. Now we're equal on the king side, pawn-wise, was my thinking. I still have my majority on the queen side. But anyway, he obviously, I think I agree with the computer, that's a blunder. He gave up his rook for my advanced pawn. And now, if you're checking the evaluation bar, black is just way, way ahead. Here we quit making blunders, at least according to the computer.
Check.
And my idea, obviously, is to wipe out his pawns here, which I happily do, preparing to bring this pawn all the way down. Or the other one. Doesn't matter to me. It thinks those are inaccuracies. But here we have blocked his pawn. And now this pawn is passed and ready to promote if his king decides to protect on the other side, which he can't really do. So he goes after my blocking pawn as I get a queen.
Check. Check.
And he wipes out my two pawns. Keeping in mind, I have one in reserve, but he has one that's really close. However, I should be able to mate him in just a couple of moves.
Check.
And
check.
And I don't.
Check.
Okay, now right here, to anyone who's played chess more than a few times, it should be fairly obvious that that is mate. Checkmate. His king then would have no legal squares. He can't block it. He can't capture the checking piece. However, here, even though Lichess says this is not a blunder,
check.
I did that. At the time, I knew it was a blunder. I felt it in my bones, and so did he. So my son got his queen. But again, if you've played chess to this point, you know that was futile.
Check.
Because I retake the queen and have my pawn left.
Check.
Now, that little hashtag, or as we used to call it, the pound sign, -5, means mate in 5. Many people, I've discovered, even people ranked higher than me, do not know how to do properly a checkmate with a king and a queen. But this is one way. My queen has him in a little box, and his king, therefore, only has 2 legal moves that he can go back and forth to. I can't bring my queen closer because he'll kill it. So I bring my king over. Now here, if I bring my king up, it's a stalemate because he would have no legal move. And that's happened to me before when I was playing on the losing side. But here, I practiced, so I redrew the box. Now his box is this big, and he has the legal move there. That's the only place he can go. Now, bring the king up, because he can only retreat, and then this is made.
Check.
So, hopefully this video wasn't too long and made sense to everybody. But this was the Caro-Kann out to 17 moves according to the main line in the book. Once more, the book is Modern Chess Openings by Nick DeFermian, and we followed the first 17 moves that are listed for the Caro-Kann all the way to here. And then we both made a whole bunch of mistakes, and I eventually won. Enjoy. Leave a comment. Thank you for watching.